BOPF and CDS are not same. We will see now the introduction of BOPF first, and then later on we will see how can we use CDS BOPF together. BOPF you can use also standalone, but it is now no more recommended to be used standalone. It is recommended to use BOPF along with CDS. Having said that, let's understand what is BOPF. So our agenda for today is understanding business object processing framework. What is it? Who use BOPF? How it is integrated in SAP world? What is a business object? As you see, BOPF, business object processing framework. So we need to understand what is business object in this. We will understand how the nodes are structured, how to develop a BOPF based application, its architecture in the classic BOPF world and in the new BOPF world with CDS. We will see our BOPF scenario and eventually generates a BOPF enabled app. And in subsequent classes, I will also teach you more advanced BOPF integrations with complete Fiori app development, and also we will learn how to extend BOPF based applications. So let's see what is the need. Why we need BOPF? What is the essence of BOPF? I am happy. I'm an ABAP developer. I'm happy with my coding. I'm happy with my skills. I'm good in doing RISE-app development. Why is this BOPF framework? What is the essence of it? So let me take some developer persona, some developer example with a demo scenario. So you will meet now Alex, who is an ABAP developer in SAP FICO. He is developing applications to support financials team for ledger entries, accounting, and documents. What is the main job of Alex? Alex's responsibility is to develop RISE-app objects using core ABAP and object-oriented ABAP. Then we meet Stella. Stella is another ABAP developer in Alex's company, and she is working on SAP SD, sales and distribution. Her job is mainly again to develop RISE-app objects using core ABAP and advanced ABAP and support teams on sales and distribution department like creating quotations, inquiries, sales orders, managing materials and stuff like that. What does the Alex do? Alex create accounting documents using ABAP, manage documents, search documents, validate before saving these documents. What is that Stella does? She creates ABAP program RISE-app objects to create sales orders, manage sales orders, search, filter sales orders, compute sales orders total, all these kind of work she does functionally using her ABAP code and OOPS ABAP code. Alex will develop user interfaces, includes, he will perform insert, update, delete, validate and save business object, which is accounting document, is a business object for Alex. He creates user interface, application code, which runs on ABAP side and saves it into database. So eventually he's implementing a lot of function modules and ABAP reports to perform create, read, update, delete on financials tables like a BKPF, BSEG, all sorts of Adoka in S4HANA, all these tables. Then we have Stella. What she does? She's also an ABAP developer working in a different department, but eventually does the same thing. She also writes insert, update, delete, save, validate, all sorts of statements in ABAP program, checking for authority checks, doing locking, unlocking of data, all sorts of update. She is also taking care. But the only difference is she is doing on sales order, Alex is doing on accounting document. So eventually, if you see whether Alex or Stella or you or me, we eventually all do same work. We write some ABAP program to read reports, write reports, create programs to insert, update, lock, unlock, delete, validate data in SAP system through ABAP and OOPS ABAP. So we all do same job, but we all use different syntax. different approaches. Each one of us have different way of thinking. Some people write very smart code. Some people not write so smart code. Some people write code which takes lot of time performance wise. Some people write code which doesn't take lot of time performance wise. Each one of us have a different experience level, different understanding, different kind of methodology of coding. Some use new syntax, some use an old syntax, classical syntax. Some like to use function modules, some like to use classes, but eventually we all do the same thing. The end goal is to do insert, update, read, delete, validate, customize, all sorts of stuff on different SAP objects. So why not let's harmonize it? Why not let us all adopt a common methodology through which most of our work, which is common on different business objects, can be done in a simple way, and in a way that it will reduce my effort of developing code and brings standardization and harmonization into the system. And that's where we have common needs. The common needs of each developer is create application logic, insert, update, delete, validate, select data, perform validation, check customizing, handle database locks. These are all the common needs, whether Alex, whether Stella, whether you, or whether me. We all do same job, same kind of work. What are all the common challenges we have? So in terms of challenges, we all think differently, hence we produce different code. We adapt application code in different way. Some people love to use object oriented, some people don't. This brings lot of high maintenance, because if I have to read your code and if I'm not comfortable with oops abap and you are comfortable with oops abap, then I need to first learn oops abap and then understand your code. Especially when somebody leave the team, it is even more difficult if the KT was not given properly to maintain somebody else's code. So these are the challenges which we face in real life as a BAP consultant. Then there is no standardization. Of course, you don't have any standard process to follow. Everyone comes. Sometime you hire contractors in your company. They work for 3 months, 4 months, and then they get another project. And then the permanent employees of that team has to take the pain of maintaining that source code. Yes. So due to lack of standardization, there is high maintenance. Each one of us have different coding practices. Some people love to declare variables. Some people love to use inline ABAP. So each one of us has different coding practices. Some people love to modularize code. Some people don't. So it is hard to predict the quality of the code. And also we spend a lot of time in doing code reviews. Then last but not least, lack of standard. Something which I would want it to understand from SAP end, that can SAP give me some guideline, best practices which I can follow to generate a code which is future safe, to generate a code which is maintenance safe or easy to maintain code. Can I do something of that sort? So considering these common needs and common challenges, SAP introduced a framework called BOPF. This framework is nothing new with S4. It's there since many years in SAP system. At least I have seen this framework since 2009 in SAP system. 2009-10 is when I saw it for the first time. In your ECC system, it's also there. But nowadays it becomes more popular because it is well integrated with CDS engine. We will discuss that more in detail in few days. Now let's talk about, considering this common need, what is the definition of BOPF? Business Object Processing Framework. What's the definition? So what is BOPF? BOPF, as you all know now, it stands for Business Object Processing Framework. It is a object-oriented based, ABAP object-oriented based framework that provides set of generic services and functionality to speed up, standardize, modularize your development. That's what BOPF is. To speed up, standardize, modularize your development. BOPF manages the entire life cycle of your business object Yes, it manages entire life cycle of your sales order or accounting document or material or service contract, or you can call anything. So eventually you have a business object in SAP, which could be any business object which you maintain, like sales order, purchase order, and it will manage the life cycle of that business object. It covers all aspect of your business application development, whether it is insert, update, read, delete, concurrent updates, data locking, yes, validation, events, actions, determinations, all of that it can handle. Instead of expanding effort for developing an application infrastructure, the developer can focus on individual business logic. So you as a developer, you just focus on your business object and specific logic which you would like to add to it. But rest all the things that framework will take care automatically. So using BOPF, you can get whole application infrastructure and integration of various components for free. Yes, for free. If you use this framework, you will get most of your implementation done in the system out of the box. This allows us to rapidly build application on stable and customer proved infrastructure. So eventually, a lot of code will be auto generated by the framework. Since framework is generating code, not a human, the code will be standard. We will have less responsibility as a developer because the generated code ensures a good code quality and coding practices. And also we have less maintenance on our head as a developer. Additionally, you get speed. Plus, you don't need to train somebody to understand that code because it's framework generated. Framework can regenerate it infinite number of times whenever you need it. That is the benefit you get when it comes to working with BOPF framework. So what is BOPF and its advantage? So as we said already, it's a object-oriented based framework which is available already in SAP system that provides set of generic services and functionality to speed up, standardize, modularize your development. BOPF manages entire life cycle of your business object and covers aspect of our business application development. Instead of expanding effort or developing an application infrastructure, the developer can really focus on business logic actually. So you will focus more on the business logic side rather than writing basic insert, select, update, delete. All of that responsibility is taken away from you. So the BOPF will generate most of your code absolutely free out of the box, which brings down the chances of human error. So when you writing these codes yourself, you can do mistakes, you do syntax errors, you may violate coding practices like in HANA. If you're doing select star, it is considered bad because of a column store. So all these kind of practices which somebody may or may not aware of, they may miss out. Even with having a good experience, today sometimes when I write a BAP code, if I'm not in a good mood, maybe my code is not so optimum. Some or the other day, as a human, I am not all the time best of my, right? So in that day when I'm not on my best, not on a good mood, probably I may commit mistakes or do mistakes or write bad code, because once the code is delivered, it needs to be maintained forever. You cannot say that I will roll back. There's no rollback once it goes to production. Yes. So this is very important to understand that we need to minimize the human intervention, which is human means here developer intervention on the code, so that we can achieve good standard and code qualities. So who used the BOPF? Who is the person or who's the team they use BO, and which products of SAP BOPF is heavily used? BOPF is not really a new framework, as I mentioned earlier. At least I've seen it since 2009-10. First time when I saw BOPF, it was 2009-10 when I saw it. In fact, it is well established and broadly used by multiple SAP business by design and business suite applications and products. For example, if you're working on SAP transportation management and environment health and safety, there the BOPF is heavily being used. SAP supplier lifecycle management, SAP management for change, SAP quality issue management, to name a few. These are all some of the SAP solutions, products, add-ons where the BOPF is used. Apart from it, it uses SAP internal development, BOPF is also used for custom development projects. So if you are SAP customer partner, you can also use BOPF for the purpose of developing your custom application using BOPF. It is possible. Yeah. So it almost everyone can use it, whether SAP or we as customers of SAP. So how it is integrated in the overall aroma of entire SAP system. So you can see at the bottom of BOPF, you have a SAP infrastructure, which enables archiving, change management, application logging, enterprise search, and BRF Plus. BRF Plus is another framework, business rules processing framework. These are different frameworks and infrastructure. With all of these frameworks and infrastructure, BOPF also has integration. Then comes is your process integration. So process integration also BOPF has integration with process integration, post processing framework of process integration PI component of SAP. It's a completely new another component of SAP which also has integration with BOPF framework. Coming to the consumer side, who can consume BOPF based apps or BOPF based enabled applications? So there you can use DINPro. BOPF is consumed by DINPro, your dialog programs, WebDINPro, web dialog programs, WebDINPro, floor plan manager, which is another framework, UI framework with WebDINPro that also can use BOPF. There are three types of floor plan: quick activity floor plan, guided activity floor plan. Yes, so all these can also use BOPF. SAP UI5 can also use BOPF enabled applications. OData services, you can also use BOPF through ABAP code with OData services and BAL layer, BAL business object layer and GNL layer. This is predominantly used in CRM world. SAP CRM is completely implemented using BAL layer that also can use BOPF as consumer. These are consumers of BOPF. Once an application is built using BOPF, they will consume that application eventually. So now coming to the next important slide, what is a business object? Let's understand what is a BO. So we are talking about BOPF, BOPF. So wherever we say BOPF, we are processing something. What is that we are processing? We are processing a business object. So what is a business object? So the definition of business object is very easy. A business object are the basic units of BOPF based programming model. Business applications or processes operate on certain business objects. Example, sales order, purchase order, accounting document, material, service contract. These are all business objects. Yeah. A business object is represented as a hierarchical tree node. As you can see on the right side, it's a basically hierarchy. You have a tree. Yeah. So this is how it is typically represented. A single node includes a set of semantically related business object data and corresponding business logic. So one node here is actually independent. You can use that independently or you can use with other nodes also. Okay. Each node, a single node represents a single business object represents a tree. So this is a business object. Yeah. So all of these tree nodes are actually business objects. So each node has its own is a business object actually. So this is a business object. This is a business object. This is a business object. So it's a tree of lots of entities actually. These are all entities. Yeah. So this is how a business object is represented. And we will have also corresponding logic, business logic for these business objects. On a technical level, each node is implemented with regular dictionary table. So technically, if you say each node here, this is a database table. Taking an example, let's say this is my order header table. The order header table then has a child table called order item. Then order item table can have a further child as order scheduling line item, right? Each item can have a scheduling line item. So this relationship between these two nodes is 1:n, and again this is 1:n. Yeah. So this is how the tree is structured, and that eventually becomes our business object. So where each node instance corresponds to a single table entry. Yeah. And when you instantiate this, so let's say this is a node, this node is order header. And when I create a object of this node, So this is a node and I create an object of this node that represents a table entry in the database table, which will have order type, sales organization, shipping point, yeah, distribution channel, ship to party, sold to party. All that will be a, this record is basically a instance, a object, instance or object, whatever you call. It's an instance or object of this particular node. So at runtime, this particular node exhibits to a table row. And if you operate on this instance, on this row, let's say I create a object of this node and I'll say object dash save, then this entry will be saved into database table. So you will work more with this object. It's a pure object oriented. So you work with object and then object will then eventually has implementation, which is auto generated, which will then save this entry into actual database table. It will do a commit of this entry into database table. So this is how you can fully control transaction at the level of object. Okay. So nodes, attributes, and alternative keys are set up as data part of the business object. Again, from a technical viewpoint, attributes are columns of your table. So as you say that there is a node, this node has an instance that is a row of a table. So node is a table and instance of that table is a row. And in that row, if you see attributes, they are columns of that table. A node serve as an anchor point for connecting business object of the business object, business logic of the business object. So it's an anchor point where you can also connect business logic. Let's say if I want to save a sales order, before saving, I wanted to check if the sales order has at least one item. So that can be a checkpoint I can add, that logic, a custom logic I can add on this node level. Each node, several type of entities can be defined to from a specific business logic part of business object. So there are different kinds of logic you can add. You can put validations, determinations, you can do checks, a lot of different things you can do on each of the business object uh, entity node, which is part of the business object. So if you see, the business object here is this whole thing. This whole thing is your business object. This is your complete business object, which is composed of multiple entity. This is entity 1, this is entity 2, and each entity will have properties. Let's say property 1, property 2, property 3. And now when you create object of this business object, yes, what you get is a row. And this row will have how many columns? Since there are 3 property, you will have 3 column P1, P2, P3. And this will have now the data inside. So that is how at runtime it will look like when you instantiate a business object. Its relationships will come alive, the tables will become eventually converted into rows, and then you can perform all the CURD key operations on that. So let's talk about node more in detail with more structured way. So you can see this is a node. Yeah, node is your anchor point for all your logic. So node is used for what purpose? For action. What is an action? You see here action. What is the purpose of action in a node? So a action is basically to implement a service of business object. An action is explicitly triggered by service consumer such as user interface. So let me take an example. There is a sales order business object entity or sales order node. When somebody approve the sales order, it's an action. You are saying approve the sales order, which means you're performing an action. You are saying the state of the sales order now will elevate to approved. Yeah. So that's an action. That's an example of action. Then comes determination. Determination is to provide functions that are automatically executed as soon as a certain condition are fulfilled. Determination means automatically determine. The determination is triggered internally due to change made to a instance of a business object. Let's example. Whenever I save a sales order, please calculate the total volume of that sales order based on line items. So that is a determination. You want to auto calculate something. Whenever I create a insurance policy, please auto calculate premium. Yeah, that's a determination. So if you building a insurance application, there you enter the policy holder details, you enter the age of the policy holder, you put the type of the plan, the tenure of the plan, and you save, and you put the sum insured. Let's say after maturity of the policy holder will get 95 lakhs. So now what is the premium every month the policy holder has to pay for how many months? Yeah, that is a determination, because system has to calculate it automatically. On the same way, if I go to take a home loan, if I go and take a home loan, then how much is the EMI I have to pay? If I buy a smartphone, then what is the EMI I have to pay? Based on the cost of the smartphone, based on the tenure I wanted to pay, it will auto calculate the EMI per month or per week or per day. Yeah, that's a determination example in business terms. Validation. As you all know, validation very common. Either validate is used to either validate a specific action can be executed on a specific node instance, or whether the set of node instances are consistent. Suppose I am saving data, and before saving data, I wanted to check if all the data is consistent or not. I'm creating a airline ticket, and when I'm planning a travel, I'm creating a airline ticket. I have by mistake chosen a past date. So obviously I can't book a airline ticket in past date. Yeah. Or I would have given the wrong airline code. So all of that validation will be taken care by the system. Or suppose I am booking a ticket with a discounted price. Yes, and I've given an incorrect card details for payment. So all this is a validation example. We want to validate on a particular action execution or on a particular event. We want to validate the data. We want to check consistency of the data. Then comes this query. Query is again search. It's more of use search oriented. So if I wanted to do a search to meet certain search criteria like dollar filter, based on filtering some data, I want to filter some data based on some criteria. I want to do pattern search, like search, freestyle search, fault tolerant fuzzy search. All those kind of search we can implement in the query section of a node. So node is providing a hook point to you to implement all this functionality. Then we have authorization check, very important. We wanted to make our application secure. So if we wanted to make our application secure, we have to also do authorization checks. So we can do a checks on the business object node on their authorizations. So this is another thing. Then next, very interesting topic, association. Association, as you know, it's a relationship. So one association we saw in CDS. Yeah. Similarly, we have also association here. Remember, the business object is a tree. This tree has multiple nodes. This is a node, this is a node. Each node is an entity. These two nodes are connected via this line. But this line is basically your join or association. Yeah. Now, association will also have cardinality, how these two are connected. If it is order and order items, then it's 1:*. If it is order and ship to party or customer, then it is 1:1, because one order pertains to one customer. So you will have a cardinality and you will have this called association. So it is to connect business object instances that are located on a different nodes. So you have lots of nodes, and these nodes eventually connects to each other to build your complete business object. So this is how you can have a association. So you have association, checks, and query. So then a node will have attributes and keys, alternative keys. Alternative keys, why do we need them? For example, technically speaking, I'm planning a travel. If I'm planning a travel, I book a ticket and I got a booking number, a PNR number. But that PNR number, if I tell it to my wife, she will not understand. So I need to tell my wife that we are traveling to Maldives or we are traveling to Singapore. That is what more meaningful for my wife. So that is a semantic key. Semantic key is something which tell you more about the business object from the business standpoint of view. So technically, it is a PNR number K099351. But if I give it to my end user, that PNR number, my end user will not understand. So I will tell that this is a travel to Singapore. Yeah. Or this is a travel to Maldives, or it's a travel destination to Goa. Let's go Goa. So this is what is called a semantic key, which helps you to also uniquely identify your business object from business standpoint of view, like sales order created for some date for this business partner. That's a semantic key. So technically, there is in business object will always have a key called a GUID. GUID is a random number, 32 character random number, which is auto generated by framework. But you can additionally add a semantic key, which will specify what identifies your business object semantically for you. We will see this in an example. You will understand it much better in scenarios. Okay, so let's take a break here for 5 minutes. Okay, everyone, welcome back after the break. So now let's talk about how exactly we design and use BOPF, how the internal organs of BOPF framework looks like, what are all we have inside the framework. We are saying it's a framework. So by far we have seen what is a node, how a node is structured, how combination of node generates your BO, but exactly what is inside this engine, which is responsible for creating, generating the node, the runtime implementation, interacting with UI, interacting with different agents, and performing all the database operations, how exactly it happens through the framework. So coming to the framework, this is a classical model. Classical model means the old approach. Old approach means where you use it for the purpose of classical ABAP and reports. So in the past, when we used to create or use BOPF, we mainly used it in WebDin pros and reports and classical ABAP. That was the main use case. So as you can see, this is our consumer layer. I have also maintained the notes in the slides. So if somebody is interested to read, they can also read these notes. You can see first is consumer layer. So consumer layer is this one. This ABAP layer is your consumer layer. What is this consumer layer? It will consume, it will utilize the BOPF API and create a new business object instances to create, read, update, delete, search business object. Frequently, BOPF BO will consume by the UI or applications like WebDin Pro. So you either use in WebDin Pro, ABAP, report. This is your consumer layer who consumes the business object and who consumes the framework. Now, this consumer layer interacts with the Transaction Manager API. Transaction Manager API is the API to which the consumer interacts, and this API is responsible for centralized transaction. Means all the transaction which are create, read, update, delete will be controlled by the transaction layer. So this is a handful API which you can consume, which you can create an object in your ABAP report or WebDin Pro programs using ABAP code, ABAP code, and then you can use this API to create new instances, destroy instances, delete data, read data, update data, lock data, unlock data. All of that you can do it through the transaction layer. So it's an API. It's a set of ABAP classes which are given by BOPF framework to you so that you can utilize it to perform end-to-end operations. Then comes this BOPF layer or called BO runtime layer. The BO runtime layer is the core of BOPF functionality. This layer contains all the required instantiation code for business object and trigger the functionality and interact with the database layer. This layer will eventually hold the information, the metadata information about your business object, and it knows how to create object of your business object. So let's say taking an example of sales order and items, if your business object is consist of these two nodes, then this layer knows about the relationship. This layer knows about how to create instance of your node, how the associations are being built. So when I create my BO node, it will know that, okay, it has to create a record in the order table, at the same time one multiple records corresponding to that in items table. So that information it has with it, which is responsible for creating your BO instances. Finally comes persistence layer. In the persistence layer is basically the layer which is responsible for database updates. It will read write data to the database. So the main goal here is to interact with database, and also it contains a buffer. Buffer means a temporary storage space where data is kept temporarily for some time until it is committed. So you know that in SAP we do logical unit of work, LUW. We handle a transaction as one single unit of work so that our data in the database remains consistent. Because when you go through screen program or applications, you are passing through by multiple screens. each screen is saving some object, but the final save has to happen once my complete transaction is over, once there are no errors in all the business objects, all the entities which I'm creating together. So when you create sales order, you are not just creating data in VBAC table, but you're also creating line item in VBAP table. So when you save the sales order, you would expect data to be created in both tables or none of the tables. So that is managed using logical unit of work, LUW. So this is what is this persistence layer is responsible for. Then what is the new application architecture? How we typically use business object processing framework nowadays with S4 HANA. With S4 HANA, what you do is you do not go and define business object in BOPF transaction separately. You will define your business object using CDS views. So you will develop a CDS view, and this defines the structure of your business object. So you see BO business object processing framework design time includes two parts, BOPF model. So this BOPF model is defined using CDS view. So now you will not define a business object yourself in a classical approach. Rather, you develop CDS view or group of CDS views with annotations called like to composition root or to parent. All these annotations are there, we will learn them. So using them, you will define your CDS views, and that will eventually turn into a business object. This business object which you see here will be instantiated by transaction manager API. So now you define a business object, and the framework will automatically create runtime model. This runtime model will have all the necessary implementation to read, update, delete data, which is then used by the framework, the BOPF runtime framework, this runtime model, which has all the implementation code generated automatically. And the same is also used by the transaction manager API. So when you create a new business object from Fiori application, the call will come to OData, and this OData service eventually invokes the transaction manager API, where it uses this runtime model, and then it gives a call to the persistence layer to perform insert, update, read, delete operations all in the database for you. Additionally, you can register extra functionality using actions, validations, determination, and field control. We will see them in action. So basically, these are separations between your auto-generated code by business object processing framework and the custom code which you willing to plug or inject in the middle. So let's say I develop an app which is going to create a travel request. So all the insert, update, read, delete will be managed by BOPF. But what if I wanted to validate if the travel request has not exceeded a amount of 1,000 euros? Then that extra coding, that extra validation, which I need to add for my business logic, custom business logic, I can inject inside the validation section. If I wanted to say that whenever a travel request is created, a workflow should trigger. So that something which I can write extra logic in actions. Actions like after save, do this. Yeah. Or a separate action that like trigger workflow. Then if I wanted to check if after travel request is created, maybe a notification has to go to the approver. So I can write that in determination that after save, something should trigger, something should happen. Now I wanted to also control authorization. I can do that. At the same time, suppose I wanted to say that a particular type of travel request, let's say travel to restricted areas where there are too many COVID cases. If somebody is planning to travel to, let's say China, for example, then they should need a special approval, and they cannot request approval from the Fiori app. So the approval button should get grayed out when somebody requests a travel request to China. In that case, I can do that using field control. So using field control, you can enable, disable actions at runtime depending on your need. So all of these things which are custom, you can control, you can manage them. We will learn all of it in our training using CDS BOPF approach. Yes. And finally, you have, as I was mentioning, buffer. Buffer is where data is parked for logical unit of work. And eventually, once everything is good, you perform a commit work, which is what then eventually persists the data finally into database. So buffer is a separation between the actual data in the database and a temporary parking lot of data where data is checked for consistency, yeah, until the transaction is complete. So that is your buffer area. So this is the new architecture, or this is the architecture of our application. Typically, when you would like to build any Fiori application or CDS based Fiori application with complete end-to-end implementation using CDS BOPF. Yeah. So we will not be creating business object by ourselves manually, like in the past. Some of you may have worked with BOPF. In the past, we used to create this business object manually. I'll give you a quick preview of how we used to do that. So some of the transaction codes are here. The first transaction code is BOBX. This is a tool which is target is experienced BOPF developers. It also provides SAP Business Suite customers with a comprehensive feature set for building business object centered application so that they can use it for their own development projects. Business Object Builder for experts is available through SAP GUI, and it is released for customers in SAP Business Suite EH6 upward. So let me first show you this transaction code. These are classical transaction code. We will again nowadays not use them for purpose of building the business object. Rather, we will use them mainly for the purpose of displaying a business object once it is auto-generated by CDS. So now let me go to our sandbox system. And we go to a transaction, this one, BOBX. Some of these transactions are obsolete now. So if you see BOBF, so this is working fine. Now some of the transactions are obsolete. Let me just BOBX only. Yeah. So this is the place where you can see business object, you see business object, development object, enhancement object. So if somebody enhanced a business object, that will be displayed here. If you are developing something, it will be displayed here. And the business objects which are delivered by SAP are all visible over here. So you see so many business objects. Now these days, majority of these business objects are generated via CDS views. So you see these are I underscore, same name as CDS view, I underscore. So if I just open this, yeah, this is my node structure. So you remember business object node, this is a node. This node has 3 child nodes. Yeah. Then you see these node elements. Each node will have associations, it will have determinations, it will have validations, actions, yeah, like activate, approve, complete, edit, lock, unlock, reject, submit. Yeah, all these are actions. You have alternative keys, semantic keys, and then you have also the status variables. So this is how your each node looks. So there are these many nodes. You see 1, 2, 3, 4 nodes are there. So this is the parent node and these 3 are the child nodes. This is your business object. If you see, this is built by CDS. So if I quickly go back to our S4 system, let me just close all this and I will go to system using Eclipse. I will actually search for this gentleman directly in the system and I just copy this name and do a Control Shift A, search this. You can see the business object. This is your business object in Eclipse. You can see this. So you can go to outline view and you can again see the same structure. You see this parent node and it has 1, 2, 3 child nodes. You see here 1, 2, 3 child nodes. So these days we don't even use these T codes to go in backend and do this. Rather we can check it directly in Eclipse in the outline view. Yeah. Now if you observe, this is built using a CDS view. Let me show you the CDS view for this. So if I search, you can see this is a CDS view. So the CDS view is eventually used nowadays to create the business object. And to do that, we use a annotation called object model. Yeah, this annotation, when you use, you will be eventually generating a CDS view, business object out of the CDS view. Yeah, so using this annotation, we take care of it. And you can see all the create, delete, everything will be enabled automatically through this approach. Update enabled, create enabled. Yeah, all these things will be enabled. You see semantic key, representative key, all this is given. This is a standard business object. I'm just showing you to sensitize how typically they are related. So a CDS view with association will eventually turn into a business object in business object processing framework, which you can see in the backend. It is auto generated by CDS. You generate CDS, activate CDS, it will eventually create a business object for you for business object processing framework. This is our new way of using the business object processing framework. Uh, in the past, what we used to do, we used to come to this T code and we used to create business object here ourselves. Yeah. So we used to click on create button and we used to create business object here ourselves in the past. But nowadays we don't do that. We use CDS view and the CDS view eventually creates the business object for you out of the box, which you can also come and browse it here later point of time. So I will come back and later point of time, once I create our scenario, I will browse and show you such a business object in the system. The second T code is again not a T code, Eclipse based development. So I already showed you in Eclipse, starting with a wrap on Eclipse, we have now Eclipse tool, and there we can also view our business object directly in the outline view. If you don't see this outline view in your Eclipse, don't worry, go to Window, Show View, Other, and search for outline view here. Yeah, here it is. So that is what you can do actually for outline view. Then starting from development environment, so this is another transaction BOPT. So now let's talk about our scenario. What is our scenario? What is our use case? Enough of theory. Now I wanted to practice. I wanted to develop something, some application using CDS, using BOPF. How do I do that? Please always remember this architecture in mind. You will have a business object definition, which is done via CDS. And for you, all of this is a black box. Just assume this whole thing is a black box for you. You don't care about it. What you just develop a CDS, a OData, and a Fiori app. This is what you will do, and rest all will be taken care by BOPF framework. Of course, this yellow box, this is important for us as a developer to hook in our own custom functionality in the middle. Once you understand the custom business object, this entire life cycle and the process, then I will also go to a standard application which is available in your system to extend it, to extend that application in your system. So that way you will also learn how to extend the existing app which is built and delivered by SAP through BOPF in the system. That also we will learn in this training. Okay, come back. So now we will go back here to our scenario. So what is our scenario? So let's talk about our scenario. I will take first a simple one single table scenario. Then I will take a scenario with multi-table. Multi-table means a parent-child relationship. So right now my goal is to take a simple scenario with one table with one node. Later on we will do multi-node also. So you guys will get comfortable with everything. Okay, our scenario, very important. Let's begin with that. So scenario here is, in this pandemic time, most of the work is being done in contactless way. This has affected almost every industry, including travel and tourism. So I remember in the past we used to travel a lot when pandemic was not there. After pandemic, many things have changed. Even when you visit airports, the processes have also completely changed on airport for qualifying you to board into a flight. Yes, so many things have changed due to pandemic. It has also changed our industry drastically. So what is that our scenario is for today? In the past, the flights which depart from airport has lot of ground staff to load food packets and meals to flight. But now we have to load meals to flight only for customers who ordered it, and also in contactless way. So there is a requirement now. So you are working as S4HANA consultant on one of the prime airport, international airport, and you have been given a requirement now from your flight company. So there is a requirement to view all the upcoming flights from the airport and check the food assignment or meal assignment to these flights. So first requirement is basically whole of the soul is search functionality. This needs to be done by a food supervisor on airport on his tablet. So he can be anywhere, yes, and it should be done on a tablet. Now, point one, you can't install SAP GUI on tablet. The very first assumption here is you have to develop a Fiori app so that the supervisor can search all the flights which are going or going to depart from the airport. Yes, that is the first requirement we need to develop. Second requirement, the supervisor can create new flight entries after discussing with airport authority, which means will be a transactional application where we need to support insert. He can modify the meal preference inside a flight, which means update. If a flight is cancelled, he can off track the meal assignment for that flight, which means delete. So full transactional Fiori app we would need to build actually. Additionally, once the meal is assigned, the delivery manager or the food store manager needs to approve the assignment based on availability. Again, this is a contactless way. So you need to also give this application to the food manager or the store manager who can approve it and reject it. So basically there is a custom action to approve. You can also probably think of a complex scenario where you can trigger a workflow. I wanted to trigger a workflow that it has to start a workflow whenever a flight is created and meal is assigned, a workflow triggers which ask for approval. So like a lot of these kind of functionality you can additionally develop. I wanted to keep scenario easy and simple and relevant so that we all can understand. Yes, that is what we wanted to achieve. Yes, let us go ahead and understand first our data model, our database table, where we have all this data which is going to get stored. So we have already arranged a database table also in your system. The database table name, let me show you the data and the database table in your system. We've already created, it's a custom table, it's a custom scenario. So it's called ZOFT meals. This is a database table we've created in your system already. Very simple and easy table. It has a primary key as called meal ID. And you pay attention that the primary key is a special data element BOPF UUID. I'll tell you the reason why I keep this as a primary key data element. It's a transparent table application type. Yes, maintenance is allowed, and it has carrier ID, which is the airline code, connection ID. Connection ID is where the flight details like American airline 0014 is going from New York to San Francisco. American Airlines 0072 going from Miami to San Francisco. Yeah. Then we have the meal assignment of the flight, the total number of seats in the flight, and the approval status, whether this meal assignment has been approved by food delivery manager or not. All of this has to be executed in a contactless manner in a Fiori application inside a tablet. So we have to build a application which can support all insert, update, read, delete, search, actions on this database table. This is a custom table, simple scenario, one table only we will use. We have some sample data also in this table, just some demo data. You can see some of the demo data we have already updated. Yeah. Even though we don't have any data, don't worry. We can create data completely through the Fiori app using BOPF. Yes. So I remember one of you have asked me when we started this training, can I insert data using CDS views? Answer is no. You cannot insert data using CDS views into the system. You cannot. You need a framework which can do that. And that's where we have BOPF in place, which is what will be able to do that. Okay. So let's take a break here for 2 to 3 minutes. And once we are back, we will start the implementation of this scenario in the system. I'll be back in 2 minutes. All right, everyone. Let's begin now building our CDS view. So our flow will be, first of all, we will be creating a CDS view. Yeah. So let me explain the flow, what we are going to do. Step by step, we will be developing it. So we will be first using our database table and we will create a CDS view. This CDS view we will now use, and then we will annotate the CDS view to create a business object. So we will annotate the CDS view, we will put annotation, which will automatically generate, this will be auto generate a business object for us. Then we will go to backend and we will probably test this particular business object quickly. If this business object is automatically giving me create, read, update, delete functionality or not. Yeah, that is what I will test. And then in the next step, I will expose is at OData service. Yeah, and then finally we will build a Fiori application which can do create, read, update, delete. And then this will be done through Business Application Studio or VS Code tool. We'll use VS Code tool to do that. Yeah. So this is what our flow will be. So as a developer, you will also use ABAP development tool on Eclipse to build the CDS view. And then same developer will use the BAS or VS Code tool to create Fiori app. Step by step, we will follow this and you all will be able to achieve this in the entire process step by step. So let's first create our CDS view through ABAP development tool on Eclipse. So I will go back to the ADT and remember the table name, copy that. And let me create now a CDS view. So we can create new CDS view, core, data, and service. You can also use entities, no problem. Yeah, you can use entity also or view also. ZINV underscore XX, and I will say my flight meal. Flight meal scenario using BOPF. Click next, next, and remember yesterday we did table function. Don't check that. Select your view. Click finish. And now let us develop the view. So let's give a name here. Give some meaningful name. And now we will put our table name, COFT meal. It's a custom table. And I will put associations now. First, we will put an association with standard table SCAR, which contains the carrier airline code. All the airline codes is stored in this. And we will put the join condition. Let me expose all the fields of my current view. And I will put here $projection dot Care ID, I'm comparing this with the care ID in airline. Then the second association, so I'm also doing multi associations here to SPFLI table as flights on $projection dot care ID is equals to airline care ID and $projection con ID connection ID is equals to airline connection ID. Sorry, flight connection ID. I'm sorry. This is also flight and this is also flight. Connection ID and then association 1, 2. Next one is as meal table as meals on $projection dot meal is compared with the meals table meal ID. These are my join conditions. Let me expose all three associations: flights, airline, and meals. We expose them and we will just activate. So far so good, very simple. Execute and you get data. I hope you are all able to create and also test your association. Okay, so now till now there is no business object generated yet. You can also search that with the name. You will not find any business object. So basically the business object will be generated with the same name as the CDS view name. So right now if I go to outline view, I don't see any business object here in the outline view for this CDS. Everyone come back to my screen so that I can show the next step. Yeah. Okay. So now let's create the business object out of it. At the same time, it's a good practice to use VDM annotation. So I'll use VDM dot view type. It's not mandatory, but it's good practice. Since we are following good practice, let us follow that. Now I will use @object model annotation. This is the annotation we use to generate a business object out of the CDS view to tell the BOPF framework that I wanted to insert, update, read, delete data. And now I will put here model category as business object. There is only one category available at the moment. Now I will say this is my composite root. This is my root node of the tree. Remember, business object is a tree data structure. So I'm telling that this view is my root of the tree. And I wanted to enable transactional processing. Transactional processing enabled as true. I want business object processing framework to generate all the curd queue operations for me out of the box. The framework has to take care of it. And finally, I will say I want to enable create, update, and also delete operations. Delete enabled. So at any given point of time, suppose your company has a requirement to develop a application where they don't want delete to be enabled. You can make delete false here. So that case, Fiori app will not allow delete operation on entries. Then we have write active persistence. This is where I will tell my database table name where the data needs to be stored. So I'm saying ZOFT means. This is my database table where data needs to be stored. BOPF has to store data in this table. I can now activate this. It will take few seconds and immediately after that you get here this box. Okay, it says total seats is no DB field, no storage, meal ID is no DB field. Okay, the problem is this alias name. This alias name, what you see, total seats is underscore. It is not able to map to the database table this total seats field actually. So maybe I should remove alias here or keep a underscore. Yes. The second problem was also with another field which is having, I think now, meal ID also. I will save and activate again with the correct alias names. And now you will see a special icon here with gray color. Yes, this icon, when you click, what you eventually see is a business object is auto generated by system. So I hover my mouse on this icon. Yes, and you see a generated business object. Wow. You don't have to go to BOPF transaction. You don't have to learn BOPF. Even somebody who never worked on BOPF in their career, the system will auto generate business object for you through CDS. That's the magic of annotations in CDS. Remember the first class semantically rich data model. I click on this and that's my BO. Wow, that's my business object. Can anybody tell me how many nodes you have in this BO? Who will answer? How many nodes we have in this BO? No one? No, only one node is there, which is this. So I'll tell you a thumb rule. As many CDS views you have, those many nodes you will have. Right now we just have one CDS view, so just one node. That's why I took this scenario, because it's simple to understand, because there's only one node, there's no complexity. In my next scenario, I will take more complex scenario where we will have multiple nodes. But this scenario is easy for understanding point of view. Now you may pay attention and see that this is the node. Yeah, node overview. This node overview, so this is your business object. This top node is your business object. And this is the first node of the business object. Yeah. And this node, you see it auto generated these structures, combined structure, combined type, table type, database table name is there, persistent structure. All of this it auto generates. It also creates a constant interface here automatically. This is all auto generated by BO runtime. If you take back to the diagram, the architecture diagram, you will remember that we gave the BO model, and runtime model is auto generated by BOPF framework. So this is all part of your runtime model. All these structures, table types, persistent structure, yes, they are all your runtime, part of runtime BO. You see this interface, yeah. All of this is part of your runtime model, which is auto generated by framework. Framework also generates insert, update, delete, functionality, methods. Yes, all of that inside. Now you can also go back and check this BO, take the BO name, go back to the classical GUI world. I can go back to classical GUI control 6 and I go to the classical GUI transaction BOBX, which I showed you today. This is old transaction code. And now here you can just check business objects, come down, or I will just search. Yes, you can see somebody is also activated. Are you? Who's are you? Rashmi, is that you? Okay. So you see the business object is auto created. I can go inside. I see one node, node element. Node element has properties. Yes, it generates actions, automatic action determination. That we will use later, but it generated this for you out of the box. You can test this by double clicking on it, execute. It will open the BOBT, where I can now test it. Yeah. So I can create now a new entry. Okay. Here in Eclipse, it's kind of crashed. The SAP GUI crashed in Eclipse. I should better use the backend Eclipse SAP GUI directly. So this is a little error. I don't know, it's Eclipse problem or SAP GUI problem. So I can go to BOBX and I can enter choose our local business object. I'll open that, I select and test. And now I can click on create. I can enter my char ID. Now you see the primary key is auto generated. See this, auto generated. Wow. This is the reason, guys. If you remember our database table, I have kept the primary key as BOPF underscore UUID. Because if you keep this data type as a primary key, BOPF will automatically insert data in your primary key. You don't have to write extra logic to do so. But we will also see example where I will not use this as the data type. It is still BOPF will work on it. Yeah. So now if you go back, I can insert here some data like American Airlines 0017, meal assignment, let's say nothing, 0, total seats are 20, status is let it be, and I will now hit the save. So what it should do, it should automatically create an entry into database table with seat number 20, and this will be the key. So let me go to database table and search if it is already there, this entry. I search with this key, and you see right now it's not persisted. It is still in the buffer. But once you do commit means you save. So you can do a check here. You see, check the node instance. So remember, this is the instance you're creating. So node is this. And now you created an instance of this node. You can check the instance, which is a row of the table. And when you save this, eventually this instance, this transaction is saved. It used transaction API of BOPF that use the BO runtime to read the structure, validate, and then use finally persistence API to store data in database table. If I go back and execute, voila, I've got my entry into database table.